its nose.
でこの情報を、情報をシェアってことで、別にこっちにだけもその情報をシェアしている場面を見ている人はこっちにいないというふうに、そういう解釈でいきましょうな。Alright, 先。Now, if you had a giraffe and he stretched another half, then you would have a giraffe and a half.
If you put in a hat and inside the with the rat, you would have a giraffe in a hat with a rat in his hat.
If you dressed him in a suit and he looked very cute, you would have a giraffe and a half with a rat in his hat looking cute in a suit.
If you glued the rose to the tip of his nose, you would have a giraffe in a hat with a rat in his hat looking cute in a suit with a rose on his nose.
If a bumbly old bee stung him right on the knee, well, then you would have a giraffe and a half with a rat in his hat looking cute in a suit with a rose on his nose and a bee on his knee.
If you put on a shoe and then stepped in some glue,
If you put on a shoe, if you put on a shoe and then stepped in some glue, shoe to glue, something.
if you put on a shoe and then stepped in some glue, you would have a giraffe and a half with a rat in his hat looking cute in a suit with a rat in his nose and a bee on his knee and some glue on his shoe.
Now, if you give him a flute and he played tooty toot, then you would have a giraffe and a half with a rat in his hat looking cute in a suit with a rose on his nose and a bee on his knee and some glue on his shoe playing toot on a flute.
If he used a chair to comb his hair, you would have a giraffe and a half with a rat in his hat looking cute in a suit with a bird in his nose and a bee on his knee and some glue on his shoe playing toot on a flute with a chair in his hair.
ちょっと難しいな。Hair. Here じゃない。If you use the chair to comb his hair.
Hair.
You would have a giraffe and a half. What pen?
If you use the chair to comb chair.
A じゃなくて、あに近い絵なので。If you use a chair to comb his hair. はい。
Chair to comb his hair.
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 うん。
Hair.
はい。Hair ってなんか髪の毛が少なくなったみたい。はい。
If you use the chair to comb his hair, you would have a giraffe and a half with a rat in his hat looking cute in a suit with a bird in his nose and a bee on his knee and some glue on his shoe playing toot on a flute with a chair in his hair.
Now, if he tripped on a snake who was eating some cake, then you would have a giraffe and a half with a rat in his hat looking cute in the suit with a rose on his nose and a bee on his knee and some glue on his shoe playing toot on a flute with a chair in his hair and a snake eating cake.
If you found an old trunk and inside was a skunk, you would have a giraffe and a half with a rat in his hat looking cute in a suit with a rose in his nose and a bee on his knee and some glue on his shoe playing toot on a flute with a chair in his hair and snake eating cake and skunk in a trunk.
If he met a fat dragon who sat in a wagon, if he met a fat dragon who sat in a wagon, then he would have a giraffe and a half with a rat in his hat looking cute in the suit with a rose on his nose and a bee on his knee and some glue on his shoe playing toot on a flute with a chair in his hair and a snake eating cake and a skunk in a trunk and a dragon in a wagon.
If he jumped on a bike and rode over a spike, you would have a giraffe and a half with a rat in his hat looking cute in a suit with a bird in his nose and a bee on his knee and some glue on his shoe playing toot on a flute with a chair in his hair, a snake eating cake and a skunk in a trunk and a dragon in a wagon and a spike and his bike.
And a spike in his bike. If a blubbery old whale got a hold of his tail, then you would have a giraffe and a half with a rat in his hat looking cute in a suit with a rose in his nose and a bee on his knee and some glue on his shoe playing toot on a flute with a chair in his hair and a snake eating cake and a skunk in a trunk and a dragon in a wagon and a spike in his bike his tail.
If he fell in a hole that was dug by a mole,
もう一つだけ。If he fell in a hole that was dug by a mole, さえて、はい。
if he fell in a hole dug by a mole, you would have a giraffe in a half with a rat in his head, looking cute in a suit with a bird in its nose and a bee on its knee, and some glue on his shoe, like tooth in a fruit with a chair in his hair, and a snake in a cake in his suit, skunk in a trunk, and a dragon in a wagon, and a spike in its bike, and a whale on his tail, and in a hole with a mole.
In a hole with a mole. ガソリンが切れてきたものが終わりの方になってからもう振り絞ってるみたいな風になっちゃってるんだけども、そこで吸うのね、鼻と口から鼻と口から同時に息をフッと吸うことができるんですね。こうゆっくりやってますと時間がかかってしまって意味が飛んじゃいますからね。だからその意味に破綻をきたさないように瞬間的に吸う。もうね、そこからその後の方がいきましょう。If we fell in a hole that was dug by a mole, dug もうちょっとはっきり dug by a mole じゃない dug by a mole 動詞をちょっと強めないというように見えちゃう。はい、一遍
If you fell in a hole dug by a mole, you would have a giraffe in a half with a rat in his head, looking cute in a suit with a bird in its nose and a bee on its knee, and some glue on his shoe, playing new tooth in a flute with a chain in his hair, and a snake in a cake, and a skunk in a trunk, and a dragon in a wagon, and a spike in his bike, and a whale on his tail, in a hole with a mole.
But if you brought him a pole to climb up the hole,
and the whale left its tail and went on for the mail,
and he gave the spike bike to Scout on a bike, Scout on a hike,
and he left the fat dragon because he's wagging its tail,
and he gave his chair to a tired old bear,
and he traded the flute to bird for some fruit,
and he told that old snake to go jump in the lake,
and the man who bought Jack brought the trunk with a skunk,
and he gave the rose to a girl he chose,
where the bee on his knee flew away with a flea,
and he put the shoe, the glue on you,
and the silly old rat ran away with his hat,
and he put his shoes, and he put his suit in the laundry chute.
and he shrunk it in half.
You would have a giraffe. You would have a giraffe という風になるわけですね。情報伝達をシェアして、語ったと。And there is no particular audience out there, you know, it's just you and me talking, sharing one piece of information. はい、今度はこの語りを、こちらの人たちに聞かせるというノリ、プレゼンテーションというノリがなるとですね、そうするとこういうコミュニケーションもあるが、同時に向こうにも向けてるということになるんですけどもね。最初からね、If you had a giraffe and he stretched another half, you would have a giraffe and a half.
If you put on a hat inside the rat, you would have a giraffe and a half, the rat in its head.
With a rat.
With a rat in its head.
But if you dressed him in a suit and he looked very cute, you would have a giraffe and a half with a rat in his hat looking cute in a suit.
If you glued a rose to the tip of its nose, you would have a giraffe and a half with a rat in its head looking cute in a suit with a rose on his nose.
Now if a bumbly old bee stung him right on the knee, then you would have a giraffe and a half with a rat in his hat looking cute in a suit with a rose on his nose and a bee on his knee.
If you put on a suit and then stepped in some glue, you would have a giraffe and a half with a rat in his head looking cute in a suit with a rose on his nose and a bee on his knee and some glue on his shoe.
If you gave him a flute and he played tooty toot, you would have a giraffe and a half with a rat in his hat looking cute in a suit with a rose on his nose and a bee on his knee and some glue on his shoe playing toot on a flute.
If you used a chair to comb his hair, You would have a giraffe in a hat with a red in its tail, looking cute in a suit with a rose in its nose and a bee on its knee and some glue on its shoe, playing tooth fruit with a chair in its hair.
Now, if he tripped on a snake who was eating some cake, you would have a giraffe in a hat with a rat in his hat, looking cute in a suit with a rose on his nose and a bee on his knee and some glue on his shoe, playing tooth on a flute with a chair in his hair, and the snake eating cake.
If you found an old trunk and inside was a skunk, you would have a giraffe in a hat with a red in its tail, looking cute in a suit with a rose in its nose and a bee on its knee and some glue on his shoe, playing tooth on a fruit with a chair in his hair, and snake eating cake and skunk in the trunk.
Now, if he met a fat dragon who sat in a wagon, you would have a giraffe in a hat with a rat in his hat, looking cute in a suit with a rose on his nose and a bee on his knee and some glue on his shoe, playing tooth. これ間違えちゃうね、僕ね。Playing tooth on a flute with a chair in his hair and a snake eating cake and a skunk in a trunk and a dragon in a wagon.
If he jumped on a bike and rode over a spike, you would have a giraffe in a hat with a red in its tail, looking cute in a suit with a rose in its nose and a bee on its knee and some glue on his shoe, playing tooth and a fruit with a chain in his hair, and a snake eating cake and a skunk in a trunk and a dragon in a wagon and the spike in his bike.
If a blubbery whale got a hold of his tail, then you would have a giraffe in a hat with a rat in his hat, looking cute in a suit with a rose on his nose and a bee on his knee and some glue on his shoe, playing tooth on a flute with a chair in his hair and a snake eating cake and a skunk in a trunk and a dragon in the wagon and a spike in the bike and a whale on his tail.
If you fell in a hole that was dug by a wall, you would have a giraffe in a hat with a red in its tail, looking cute in a suit with a rose in its nose and bee on his knee and some glue on his shoe, playing tooth in a fruit with a chair in its hair and a snake eating cake and a skunk in a trunk and a dragon in a wagon and a spike in its bike and whale out of its tail in a hole with a mole.
But if you brought him a pole to climb out of the hole,
and the whale lifted his tail and went off on the mail.
and he gave the spike back to a scout on a hike,
And he left a fat dragon because it wagged its tagging.
and he gave his chair to a tired old bear,
And he traded the flute to bird for some fruit.
and he told that old snake to go jump in the lake,
And the man who bought junk bought the trunk with a skunk.
and he gave the rose to a girl he chose,
The bee on its knee flew away with a flea.
and he put the shoe with the glue on you,
And the silly old rat ran away with his hat.
and he put his suit in the laundry chute.
And it shrunk another half.
Then you would have a giraffe. さて原文がかなり体の中に入ったところでですね、いつものようにモード転換をやっていきたいと思います。If you had a giraffe and he stretched another half, you would have giraffe and half って非常にこのあれですね理屈に合ってると。これ全体通してで順々とこの因果関係を解いていってね、決して飛躍があるわけじゃない、順々と解いていって結論に持っていくというこの生き方がちゃんと生きているわけですよ。素晴らしい文章ですね。でこれはいわゆるそのザレ歌っていうか言ってみれば詩ですよ、俗に言うね。ところがこういう素材を見るとみんなこれ読んで楽しいな、楽しいで終わってしまうと。で片や今ディベートが必要だとかって言ってディベートはディベートで別口にですねI agree with you, I disagree with you because 何々 って単発の表現を教えて、あとどうしていいかわからないっていうのが大体現場の悩みなんですよ。大体ディベートなどやったことがない先生たちが大半です。やったことないんですよ実際そうだからしょうがないんです。でそういうふうな教材だから、教材も教材で、ディベートはディベートの教材と、リーディングはリーディング、トイックはトイックとね、レステーションはレステーション、ドラマはドラマというふうに、みんな市役所の窓口のように縦割り学習を行われている。で勉強が行われているということなんですけれどもですね、この辺のところの考え方を改める。まずとにかく土台にしっかりとした孫を型なきその素材というものがあって、まとまった長さの素材があって、その中での雄弁のからくり、語り手が自分のコミュニケーション目的を達成させるためにどういうふうな、語りを展開しているか、どういうふうに展開しているかというあたりのところに着目して、その理解したように声に出して来たわけですがね、今も、やってきてここまで来たわけですけれども、で今のようなその特徴というものを今度は、生かしてですね、全然別な場面を表現してみたいというのがモード転換という練習なんだが、例えば小学校の英語教育について始まってしまいましたけれども、これに賛成の立場を述べることもできれば、反対の立場を述べることもできる。あくまでも訓練ですから、例えばこんなふうに言えるね。if you had a giraffe じゃなくて、if an untrained English teacher with poor pronunciation teaches English to a group of 30 children, you would have an untrained English teacher with poor pronunciation and a group of 30 children with poor pronunciation. If each of those children with poor pronunciation someday becomes an English teacher and teaches English to her own group of 30 children, you would have an untrained English teacher with poor pronunciation and a group of 30 children with poor English, and a total of 900 children with poor English. And that's why I'm opposed to the current elementary school English education. と、仮にですよ。そんな風に、反対文を作ってみる、あるいは言ってみるという風なことができると。先ほど言いましたように、ディベートはディベートで別口にディベート用の表現っていうものがあるというふうに考えないことなんですよ。今のように言ってみる。もう一回言ってみましょうか。いいですか。原文にちょっと思い出してください。あの感覚を。If you had a giraffe and he stretched another half, you would have a giraffe and a half.If an untrained English teacher with poor pronunciation teaches English to a group of 30 children, you would have an untrained English teacher with poor pronunciation and a group of 30 children with poor pronunciation. And if each of those children with poor English someday becomes an English teacher and teaches English to her own group of 30 children,You would have an untrained English teacher with poor pronunciation and a group of 30 children with poor pronunciation and a total of 900 children with poor English. And that's why I'm opposed to the current elementary school English education と、ね、と例えばご愛嬌です。いろいろな場面を想定していってみるという練習をしてもらいたいと思います。